Ah, the Detroit Lions. Some would say I saved the best for last. They would be wrong. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to the episode of Packcast, the podcast where you have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi, and today we are looking at the final team. We are grading the final team in the NFC North, and that is, of course, the Detroit Lions. Before we get too far deeply into that swamp, I want to do a big shout and thank you to my Patreon members or patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. If you would like to support me and get some cool rewards, check that out. Now, I have gone in, and I think Bears fans and Vikings fans will attest to this, that I have gone in unbiased, regardless of how much I hate your team, looking at you, Vikings, or how much I just don't care about your team, looking at you, Lions. Because, I think it's important as a Packers fan to know what the competition is doing. And plus, I'm fully aware that I have a bunch of fans who are not necessarily Packer fans looking at you, Bears fans. And so, going into this, I didn't really have any preconceived notions. The only thing I hated the Lions for is that they took TJ Hawkinson from us, because I love TJ Hawkinson. But, spoilers, this draft was rough. And I think that they had definitely the worst draft of the NFC North. Not wasn't like catastrophically bad, like not a D or an F, but I think there definitely were some highly questionable picks. And if we're doing a comparison to the Vikings one we did yesterday, I almost want to increase the Vikings score to a B+ if we're looking at the relativity to the rest of the division and the Lions. But enough chitter chatter, and let's just jump into this. So day one, the Detroit Lions had the number 8 pick, and with the number 8 picks, they picked the Iowan tight end, TJ Hawkinson, who I love. I have a full breakdown on TJ Hawkinson on this channel. The guy is, in my opinion, the only tight end that was worth drafting in the first round. Sorry, Noah Fant. It's just that TJ Hawkinson has amazing blocking ability. He is excellent in the passing game. In 2017, he had 320 yards and 3 touchdowns on 24 receptions. And then in 2018, 760 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 49 receptions. Won the John Mackey Award for the best tight end in the nation. And he was also splitting carries or splitting plays with freaking Noah Fant. And so I think this guy is going to be an incredible addition to whatever team he wound up going on, and that is being the Lions. Now, the big question is, though, or the big discussion that is surrounding this, is that good old Ed Oliver was still available at number 8, who would then get scooped up by the Buffalo Bills at number 9. And so that is going to be the ultimate debate. While TJ Hawkinson is going to be a day one starter, is going to immediately help that offense, is going to help as a blocker, is going to help as a receiving threat, is going to be a nice big target for Matthew Stafford, there begs the question is, could you have made that defensive line even more elite? In that, obviously, they got Trey Flowers from the Patriots, who is a phenomenal player. And then they also had Ashawn Robinson, who was a pretty solid defensive tackle, right? And they also got Damon Harrison, too, from the Giants. And those guys, they're pretty good. They're putting up decent production. But I'm like kind of torn on this. If they put Ed Oliver on the team, I would be a lot more fearful of that the Lions, obviously, defensive front. But at the same time, I could also make the argument that they had a bigger need at tight end. They got Jesse James, who in 2018 had 30 receptions, 423 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which is not setting the world on fire. And while I have made many jokes that they're just going to turn TJ Hawkinson into the next Eric Ebron, Hawkinson's no Eric Ebron. And so while I personally may have gone with Ed Oliver because I think that he is a game changer on defense, and guys like him don't come around very often, and you could always teach a tight end how to block. With Hawkinson, you don't have to, and so I like this pick for the Lions. It makes their offense significantly more dangerous, and so for their day one, I'm going to give it an A-, and the only ding that it is that I personally, and again, this is all my opinion, I probably would have picked Ed Oliver just because I don't know if we're going to see another person like him again fall down to the number 8 position. And then we move to day 2 for the Detroit Lions, and this is where I'm scratching my head a lot, but let's get into it. With the number 43 pick, they picked Jelani Tavai, the linebacker from Hawaii, and the Lions fan base and analysts collectively said, who? Just like the opening scene in Guardians of the Galaxy when no one knew who Star-Lord was, no one knew who Jelani Tavai was, and the guy is an inside linebacker. He's 6'2", 250 pounds. He's slow. There's a major injury that he's coming off of with his shoulder. He missed the combine because of it. I was checking out a bunch of different sites. He was projected around like the 4th or 5th round. Some positives, though. He is an aggressive player, and his stats aren't that bad. 2015 had 27 solo tackles, 5 for a loss, 3 sacks. 2016, 85 solo tackles, which is great production, 19.5 for a loss, 6 sacks, an interception, and 2 passes defended. 2017, 66 solo tackles with 11 for a loss, 5.5 sacks, 1 interception, and 1 pass defended. And then 2018, obviously he was injured during the season, but 42 solo tackles, 5.5 for a loss, 2 sacks, and 2 passes defended. So he's good against the run. He's not really great against the pass, obviously, as his stats indicate. But I think just from a standpoint of, like, he's not a bad player, but holy hell, is this a reach and a half? Like, there's no doubt in my mind that even if you wanted to reach for him, go get him in the 3rd round. There's still plenty of guys that they could have picked up to help out that desperately slim linebacking core that they have. And for me, like, Tavai, yeah, go 3rd. I think he's going to be there in the 4th, though, anyway. This just doesn't make any sense and feels just like a wasted pick at this point. And I think this kind of negatively impacts the Lions draft as a whole, considering, you know, they're the number 43 pick. You know, this is really early on in the 2nd round. There was still plenty of good guys left on the board. This one just left me scratching my head. And again, it's not saying that Tavai is going to be a bust. I just think for the position that they were in, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then with the number 81 pick, they picked Will Harris, a defensive back out of Boston College, ran a 4.41 combine, a 40-yard dash. His stats really kind of indicate more of a backup role. They traded down with this pick from 88 to 81 to go get him and lost to 6, which they wound up getting back anyway. But in 2015, only played 9 games, had 17 solo tackles, 1 interception, 1 pass defended. Then he played 13 games in 2016 and 17 with 34 solo tackles in 2016, 2 interceptions and 4 passes defended, 45 solo tackles in 2017 with 1 interception and 2 passes defended, and then 12 games in 2018 with 43 solo tackles, 1 interception, and then no passes defended. And I don't think this is 3rd round production. It's early on in the 3rd round. They traded up for him, and the guy is 6'1", 207 pounds, so he has good measurables. He's good tackler. I'm thinking they're going to move him to safety, considering the guy is not a ball hawk. He doesn't really... Some of the tape I was watching, it doesn't look like has really great ball instincts, obviously indicated also with the lack of passes defended. But I think, you know, for a tackling guy, it's not bad, but I'm scratching my head again in that I feel like this guy was a reach and a half. And I don't get it. When you're talking about like day 2, early 2nd round, you're getting most likely a starter, right? Or someone who's very, very close to it. And then I would argue early on in the 3rd round, you're going to get something similar. And so for me, this whole day just was a big head scratcher. I could see if, again, they picked Will Harris up in the 4th round or Tavai in the 4th round. And so I'm going to give this day a C+, and I think that's somewhat being generous. And it's not that these guys are bad, but I don't think Harris is an immediate starter. He definitely needs a position change. And Tavai, I think, would have been there on day 3, or they could have picked him up in the 3rd if they really, really wanted to. And moving on to day 3, where this is where they had the majority of their picks. With the number 117 pick, they picked Austin Bryant, the defensive end out of Clemson, who's 6'4", 271 pounds. The guy is lanky, has great arm length. He is one of those edge rushers that will be able to use his length to make a difference. He is a bit of a project, but he has great measurables. He does need to get stronger, though. Looking at some of his tape, he is pretty slow off the line. In 2015, he had 12 solo tackles, 2 for a loss, 1.5 sacks. In 2016, 8 solo tackles, 4.5 for a loss, 2.5 sacks. Then in 2017, he had his best season with 31 solo tackles, 15.5 for a loss, 8.5 sacks. And then in 2018, 18 solo tackles with 15 for a loss and 8.5 sacks again. So he had a torn pectoral in 2018 that he was playing with, which could indicate why which is why his tackles were a little bit less than they were in the previous year. They also traded down for this, so they went from the 111 pick to 117 and got their 6th rounder back. Actually, moved up a couple spots in the 6th round, so that's something. But he had good production in 2017. Obviously, then had that injury, and so I think that this guy could eventually become a starter. Clemson is known for their defense, especially in this draft class in particular. But this guy has like all the measurables of being a great project, and I think he could be a starter on that line. It's just going to take some time. Then with the number 146th pick, it's the guy that the Lions just dared me to get his name correctly, and that's Amani Oruwariye. Amani Oruwariye. Amani Oruwariye. Yeah, that sounds good. The cornerback from Penn State, who's 6'2", 205 pounds, ran a 4.47, which is okay speed for a corner, but has great measurables. He wasn't a full starter in 2017, but he had 4 interceptions and 8 passes defended. In 2018, had 39 solo tackles, 3 interceptions, and 11 passes defended. I actually really like this pick. I think there was a lot of value at this pick. And so while he has a lack of experience, he has good measurables. While his speed is not really like what we would want it to be, again, this is another guy who could potentially benefit from being moved into a safety role. But I'm not, at 146, I think that this is a good pick for the Lions, and I think he's going to wind up starting in their backfield sooner rather than later. Then with the 184th pick, they got Travis Fulgham, the Old Dominion wide receiver, who's 6'2" and 215 pounds, ran a 4.58 40, so he is slow as hell, but he is a big target. Not going to get much separation from the defenders, which was a problem in his tape and was also going to be a problem in the NFL. Didn't do much in 2015. In 2016, had 29 receptions for 478 yards and 8 touchdowns. So obviously, 8 touchdowns and 29 receptions is pretty damn good. But 2017 had 30 receptions, 394 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then 2018 bounced back with 63 receptions, over 1,000 yards at 1,083, and 9 touchdowns. So we had a great 2018, a good 2016 as well. I think he's going to provide competition within the camp, and he has a chance of making the team based off of his measurables alone. But this guy is not going to be a barn burner. If anything, he's just going to provide a big target for Matthew Stafford if he does make the team. Then moving on to number 186, just 2 picks later, the Lions go with Ty Johnson, the running back from Maryland, at 5'10", 208 pounds. I mean, what to say about this guy? I don't think he's going to make the team, to be completely honest, but he's good at avoiding tacklers early on, not really in the second level. He doesn't have a lot of power. Didn't do much in 2015. In 2016 and 17, though, he was a workhorse. 2016 had 110 attempts for 1,004 yards and 6 touchdowns. 137 attempts in 2017 with 875 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then 2018, only 66 attempts, 506 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And so he's not a receiver threat, by the way. I'm not even going to read off his receiving stats because they're almost non-existent. So there's going to be no help with that. But the Lions have a running back by committee already going on. So I think this guy is going to come in just for competition. But if I had to make a wild guess, I don't think he's going to make the team because I don't think he really offers anything special to the Lions that they don't already have. Then with the number 224th pick, they got Isaac Nauta, the Georgian tight end, sitting at 6'3", 244 pounds. 4.91, which is pretty good tight end speed considering his size as well. 2016 had 29 receptions for 361 yards and 3 touchdowns. 2017 only 9 receptions for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then 2018 30 receptions, 430 yards and 3 touchdowns. So not the most amazing production. I see him more of as a backup rotational role. Jesse James ain't getting any younger, so he could potentially sit behind TJ Hawkinson if he makes the team. He is a good mismatch considering his speed and also, while a little bit undersized, I think that, he has a shot at making the team just because they don't have a ton of depth at the position. I can see TJ Hawkinson obviously getting the majority of the snaps. Jesse James will come in when needed, and then if they want to keep 3 tight ends, they might go with Nauta here. Then finally, with the 229th pick, they picked P.J. Johnson, the defensive tackle from Arizona, who's 6'4", 334 pounds. I just like his story. The guy has 2 young kids, and he's like, hell, I got to go and support them. So I got to join the NFL sooner rather than later, which always tugs at my heartstrings. And I mean, listen, the guy has great size. He's only a 1-year starter from 2018, played 9 games, 29 solo tackles, 8.5 for a loss, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. 2 fumbles recovered and 1 forced fumble. So, I mean, those are pretty damn good stats. Limited experience, though, and has good measurables. I think he's a great project, and I think they could have done much worse for their last pick in the 7th round. And just the human part of me hopes that he makes the team. And so with all that being said, the pick I like the most on this day is the cornerback pick. But other than that, I really don't see too many starters here. I think a bunch of these guys aren't going to make the team, aren't really threats like wide receivers and running backs. And so I'll give this a B- for day 3, because again, they're not doing anything that's really knocking it out of the park. Some good projects, though. And then overall, if I had to grade this draft, this is just such a weird draft for me. I feel like there was a lot of reaches, and they got more value in the later rounds than the value they should have gotten out of their early round picks. There's not a ton of day 1 starters here. There's a bunch of projects, and considering how high up they were in the draft, I have to say, like, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And again, they did fill some holes, right? They got it at tight end. Maybe they helped their linebacking core a little bit. They're trying to rebuild that secondary bit by bit. But I think there was definitely more value at the position that they were in, and they really didn't take advantage of that. And so, and this is kind of being generous, but I'm going to give the Lions a B- here. I was swaying between a C+ and a B-, but again, I really like the Hawkinson pick, and I do think there is some value in the later rounds. And while I think that some of the players that they drafted on day 2 aren't bad, it's just that they could have gotten them later, and it would have made a lot more sense, and it would have made that grade go way up. But let me know what you think down in the comments below, especially if you're a Lions fan. I'm very curious to see what you think. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, TomGrossiComedy, Comedy, at TomGrossiComedy on all the social media you see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, and of course here on YouTube. We'll do undrafted free agents for the Green Bay Packers tomorrow. Which ones are most likely to make the team? Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack Go.